So the next posture in primary series is Baddha Konasana. It's also known as the butterfly pose sometimes. So we start with the feet together, and you bring the feet in as close as you can. So you're bringing the heels in as close as you can. And I like to think about pressing the outside edges of my feet towards each other so I can open the feet. So this deepens the rotation in the hip. So if already being in Baddha Konasana is kind of tight for you and you feel a lot of tension, then this part might not be appropriate for you. But if you want to go a little bit deeper, you can think about pressing the outside edges of the feet together and opening the feet up like a book. And the first version of Baddha Konasana in primary series is to fold forward, but I kind of like to take a little moment here with the spine straight. I think it's a nice opportunity to feel the pelvis rooting into the mat, the spine lengthening, the shoulders dropping, the heart lifting, and then beginning to feel this release through the inner thighs. So this is often a part in the body that can be really tight. Especially in Ashtanga, there aren't a lot of opportunities to lengthen and open the inner thighs. So this is it. This is your opportunity. If the knees are way up here and there's this like tension here on the inside of the thighs, then something I suggest to do is to put blocks underneath the knees. So you might think that putting the blocks underneath the knees is stopping you from getting deeper into the pose. But a different way of looking at it is, if your knees are up here and there's tension on the inner thighs, if you put blocks underneath or whatever you have around the house, then that allows the thighs to relax. And then you can begin to release the inner thighs. So they're not holding on and gripping because there's nothing supporting them. But if you give something to support them, you allow them to rest on a surface. You could also think about it like if you're bringing the floor up to your knees, you're kind of adjusting the floor to your knees. You can begin to relax the thighs downward to release the inner thighs. And then from that release, from that letting go, they begin to lengthen. So over time, you lower the support. So for right now, what I just did to lower them is they were kind of in, and then as you move them out, that lowers the support. Maybe eventually, you're coming all the way down to a much lower support. Maybe it's like a rolled up blanket, yeah? And then eventually they come all the way down to the floor, or, in that direction. And they don't have to come all the way down to the floor. That's just the direction we're moving in. Something else that I kind of like to work with here is a form of active stretching. So you can take your hands, or somebody else can put their hands from behind you, someone that you trust, and they can push the hands down as the thighs move up. So it's this like action counter action of the hands moving down and the thighs like kind of fighting against that pressure from the hands. And so like nothing's happening from the outside, but in the inside, I'm really engaging the inner thighs. And then when you let that go, then you might have a little bit more space to press the thighs down towards the floor and release the inner thighs a little bit more. For the A position in the primary series, we fold forward. And so now not only are the inner thighs releasing, but we're going to start to move into the hip flexion. And this might be an aspect of Baddha Konasana that's a little bit tighter for you. This often comes up for a lot of students that I've noticed. So it's this skill of moving into hip flexion as the inner thighs are also stretching and also lengthening the lower back. So you're reaching the heart forward, and we're moving in the direction to bring our belly onto our feet. And as you do that, keep the elbows in to keep this nice and open, shoulders away from the ears, so you're keeping the spine long, the back of the neck long as you fold. And this is very deep for the hips. Something that I like to do sometimes to deepen into this a little bit more, if I feel like going a little bit deeper, is instead of keeping the hands on the feet, which is more conventional in Ashtanga, is reaching the arms forward, coming onto the fingertips, and even lifting the sit bones off the floor. So really moving in this direction to bring the belly onto the feet. And then relaxing the head to lengthen the back of the neck. And then as you keep reaching forward through the fingertips to really lengthen the torso, move the rib cage away from the hips, you're dropping the tailbone down towards the floor. And this kind of gives you the opportunity to move into a position that can take you a little bit deeper. So that's A. And then for B, inhale, you come up. For B, instead of thinking about keeping the spine long, we really round the spine. So this is a supinoponic form. You really drop the tailbone, round the whole spine, drop the chin, and then bring the forehead towards the toes. So conventionally with Ashtanga yoga, we don't move the position of the feet. Sometimes I like to not do the conventional way and move the feet a little bit further away so that I can actually get the head into the arch of the feet. Because when I round, that's where my head lands. When my feet are too close, it just doesn't reach. This might also have to do something with body proportions. So just figure out if you want to get that connection where you feel like you're closing that loop of rounding the spine and bringing the head into the feet, then just figure out where do I need to place the feet so that when I come into my most rounded position, my head ends up with my feet. Be careful here not to let the shoulders come up and lose all that space around the neck. So you're really contracting into this, but we still want to create the space where we can, so it doesn't feel claustrophobic. And then when I'm here too, I like to think about pressing the knees down towards the floor. So I'm like actively moving into the stretch, and you're actively rounding. So you're dropping the tailbone, rounding the whole front of the body for 5 breaths. And then you come back up to finish it. Come to a straight spine, and this is such a nice moment. You get to roll out of it, find a straight spine on an exhale, settle here, maybe feel the residue from being in that supinoponic form. Find a straight spine again, kind of neutralize, and then from here, you move through vinyasa to keep moving through the series. So this is a great posture to kind of work on the inner thigh flexibility, to continue moving a little bit deeper into the hips. Often this can be a really great posture to work with lotus. Sometimes some of the flexibility that we work on in Baddha Konasana, a lot of times it's a flexibility that people are missing for the lotus position. So great posture, it's simple, but super helpful, super effective for all of these skills that we're working on in primary series. All right, enjoy.